This is The Competitive Edge with Brandon Rickman. Welcome to The Competitive Edge. My name is Scott Britton, and I'm here to help you answer a question that we all have. How can I get an edge in my business and life? Each week, we're going to uncover how some of the most successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, entertainers, and thought leaders get an edge, so you too can reach your full potential. Do you want more unique ideas and tactics like the ones we're about to share in this episode? Then you're going to want to do two things. The first is to subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes so that you don't miss out on new ideas from future conversations. After this, you're going to want to go check out my main site, lifelonglearner.com. When you enter in your email address to join the Lifelong Learner community, you'll get access to my most advanced strategies to stack the deck in your favor. Again, that's life-longlearner.com. What's going on, Competitive Edge listeners? Have you ever had an idea for a product or even just a way to make something that already exists even better? Maybe it's something as simple as looking at a popular kitchen utensil and wishing it had your favorite sports team's logo on it. Well, if you've ever had an idea for creating a physical product and want to know exactly how to do it, today you are in for a special treat. We'll be hearing from Brandon Rickman, an awesome entrepreneur who's brought hundreds of different products to market. He's patented, licensed, and manufactured a vast array of different inventions that have sold in everywhere from Home Depot to Walmart. He's even developed product lines in partnership with household organizations and companies like the NCAA and Disney. Today, Brandon is going to give you an insider's view to his step-by-step system to going from idea to the shelves of your favorite retailers. I've never encountered a more comprehensive guide of exactly how to do this than Brandon gives in this episode, and he's totally transparent with questions that we all have, like how much money can you actually make doing this? If you've ever wanted to create a physical product, let this conversation be your blueprint. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hear from Brandon Rickman. Hey, Brandon, what's going on, man?
Hey, Scott, I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Doing really good and excited to talk about product development. Brandon, I thought we could start this conversation just by maybe introducing some of the products that you've brought to market.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to talking to you today and sharing a little bit about my experience in the consumer products world. Yeah, I think everybody has an idea for a product. You know, most people see a better way to do things, and what I've found over the years is that most people are not certain what to do with that idea once they have it. So happy to share my experience and maybe help some of the people out there kind of know what next steps are. So
absolutely,
I got started in consumer products and developing consumer products in the late 90s. I was actually a real estate developer, so I was building houses with my brother. My dad was a builder, and so we kind of followed in his footsteps into building houses and doing commercial and residential construction. My brother, actually, very creative person. He had an idea for a product that related to kind of DIY patch repairing sheetrock in your house. We thought it was a great idea, so he and I partnered on it together, and we got a patent, did everything wrong that you could imagine. We hired one of these patent invention companies from TV and paid them, $15,000 to do our patent work. They eventually got shut down, and the attorney that worked for him lost his bar certificate. And then we licensed the product to a company who took the product to market, and we negotiated a horrible deal because we didn't want to hire an attorney and spend the money. But in the long run, we learned a lot from that first product. It actually sold about $8 million at retail the first year that it was on the market, and we received royalties from that. So it was a costly mistake, but it was a huge learning curve. So we learned that we liked developing consumer products. We kind of started with what not to do, and then learned, from each product after that a little better how to not only develop products but also get them to market and do it, on a cheap budget without, spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So, okay,
that was the first product.
I was going to say, that's great. So the do-it-yourself home solution, which other ones, just kind of really paint a picture of just the breadth of products that you've created for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, that was in the hardware space. My next product was a laser measuring device, which also went into the hardware space. I licensed to an executive from Black & Decker. After that, I manufactured and sold a product myself that was a tool holder that would clip on your belt like a cell phone. That sold in Home Depot and many other retailers in that space. And then I did some auto aftermarket products, so stuff for cleaning your tires and other things you'd buy at like a Napa or O'Reilly Auto Parts. And then moved into sporting goods. So I moved over into the licensing side of the business and started a business, developed products that we licensed the NCAA and NASCAR and Disney. And we would manufacture products under license with those guys and put their logos on the product and sell them at retail. We sold those to...
What's an example of one of those products?
We did NCAA golf towels. So a golf towel that you'd hook on your golf bag that has a college logo on it. We manufactured those. We manufactured cooling towels, which is a type of towel that dries your sweat and cools you down. They're very popular for golfers and tennis players. We did tennis bags with college logos. We did a program with Dollar General with NASCAR-themed barbecue grill accessories. So we sold those in all of the Dollar General store, 11,000 plus Dollar General stores around the country. So that was more in the barbecue grill side of the business. So a little bit of a few products here and there, but in many different markets.
That's great, man. It's really, really cool. And you're totally spot on where everybody's looked at the beer mug or whatever it is and said, wow, wouldn't this be cool if I could get my college logo on it? Or wouldn't it be cool if, instead of having to patch these three things together I'm doing, I could create a product around it. I think where we can kind of take this conversation from here is somebody has an idea. They have an idea for a product. What are the first steps they should take, and what are the things they should be thinking about?
Great question, and I get that question often from people who have these ideas. And, the first step, the easiest step when you have the idea is to look online, search Google, see if you find anything similar, go to the local stores who would sell it, and see if you see anything similar. And I tell people to try to find a reason not to pursue the product. Because, people are especially entrepreneurs and people who have a new idea for an invention are kind of taken aback by that statement. But the amount of time and the amount of money that it can take to grow a product from an idea to, selling on Walmart shelves is hundreds of thousands, likely millions of dollars. And what I try to encourage people is to learn the process that I teach and that I tell people for developing products, and learn to love the process, not each product. Because I feel like if people can learn the process, the step-by-step process, and continue to do it, this product may not be the hit, but the next product may be, or the next product or the next product. So doing the initial search online to see if there's anything like it is the first step in the process. And then you can hire, the second step would be to hire someone to do a patent search. You can hire an attorney, which is going to be somewhere around $1,000 to $1,500, or you can hire search firms who usually charge $400 to $600, and they'll actually do patent searches for you based on the description that you give them of your idea or product. So those are the first two steps.
How long does that process usually take?
Usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to do the patent search. I do, the Google search and go into a store can be done in a couple of hours. And going, assuming there is a store close by, a Walmart or a Home Depot or Academy, whatever it is, that retailer that might sell a similar product.
Got it. Okay, so second step, patent search. What comes after that? Let's say it comes back, turns out no one has a patent on what you are thinking about creating, and you've been given the green light. What's next?
So the next step, and the most important step in the whole process, in my opinion, is to determine whether you want to license the product or whether you want to manufacture it. A lot of people use different terms for these, but I'll kind of explain both avenues. So licensing the product is generally you need to have a patent or at least patent pending, and then you're going to give the rights, you're going to license the rights to that patent or to that product to another manufacturer. So you're going to give Procter & Gamble the license to manufacture this product that you've patented. And when you do that, you are giving them all rights to the packaging, to where they sell it, to how much they sell it for. You give them all the freedom to sell it wherever they want and at whatever price they want, and you have very little or no control over that. And in return, they pay you usually 5 to 7% of the wholesale price that they sell it for. So what that means is if Walmart's selling something for $10, they probably bought it for $5. There's usually a 50-point markup for the retailers. And so you're getting paid a royalty, 5 to 7% of that $5 price, that wholesale price. And it's a great way to get into the business, to learn the business, because it's very cost effective for an at-home inventor or an entrepreneur to come up with an idea and then license it to a company. You can do it for, under $1,000, and who knows? I mean, there are people out there who've licensed their ideas that make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year off of it. That's certainly not the norm. The norm, of course, is lots of hard work with much less returns. And the truth is that 95% of the patents that are received from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office never make any money. So,
interesting.
A lot of people file patents, and not a lot of people make money off the patents they file.
So let's take a step back for a second. So you decide, you get the feedback that nobody has from the lawyers, that no one has a patent for this particular product. Do you then go ahead and decide to have them file a patent for you? Do you need to create designs for the product? Do you need to validate market demand in any way? I gotta believe there's another step before you go ahead and just ask, Home Depot or whoever it is, whether they'd be willing to sell your product.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's, deciding whether you want to license it or manufacture it will determine what that next step is. Ultimately, if you decide you're going to manufacture it, your next 4 or 5 steps will be a little bit different than if you decide you're going to license it. But either way, I would not encourage to go ahead and file a patent at that point. I would file a provisional patent. And what that is, a provisional patent, if you file it yourself, it costs about $110 to file with the USPTO. Or if you hire an attorney to do it, it can cost, depending on how complex the product is, it can cost up to anywhere from $1,500 up to $10,000 or $15,000. But what that does is the provisional patent gives you a 1-year protection to test the market and see if you're going to bring that product to market. And within that year, you have to then file a non-provisional patent in order to pursue the product, or the patent goes invalid. So you can still manufacture the product and sell it, but there's no patent protection after that 1-year period.
Got it. So the risk that you run if you're deciding to manufacture yourself is somebody could create a very similar product. I mean, essentially exactly the same thing, and it just becomes a race to who can market and sell better.
That's right. If there's no patent protection, and even if there is patent protection, a lot of times, if the product does well in the market, someone's going to figure out a way to patent around it. They're going to change the utility of it slightly to figure out how they can capitalize on the market. So, the reason I encourage people not to file the non-provisional patent up front is because it's very costly. It can be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 or more if it's high technology driven. But the other reason is the difference between what your idea is today and what it's going to be when it hits the store shelf will evolve and change over time. So if you filed a patent today and you spent all that money, that $10,000 or $15,000, and then a year from now, you realize that you've needed to make changes to it because the manufacturing process is wouldn't let you do it the way you thought, or you want to add different features, well, then the patent that you filed is most likely not going to cover what you're now doing. So you'd have to go back and file another patent at that point. So I think that's contrary to what most inventors think. Most inventors think, oh, I have this idea, I've got to go file a patent. And they either spend a lot of time or money to file that patent up front. And I think that's what contributes to so many of the people who get patents not being able to make money off of them. They change, and you have to refile another patent.
What should we be asking ourselves to determine whether we should license a product or decide to manufacture one?
Good question. I think to license a product requires a little bit of input, and there's going to be a little bit of return because it's only 5 to 7% of the wholesale cost. If you want to go into manufacturing, it is costly and it's time consuming. It's a full-time job. So I think the first question is, what is your personality? What kind of person are you? If you're an entrepreneur, you're driven by, the doing the things that most people can't do. You wake up every morning with this drive to succeed, and with your idea, you're going to put everything you have into it. And you have access to capital. A lot of people don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars or the relationships to start a manufacturing company. So, if how much capital do you have or how much capital do you have access to is certainly a driver in that. How much time do you want to devote to it? Are you the kind of person that wants to start a business, running manufacturing, dealing with overseas manufacturers and logistics and hiring people and, running a business? Or do you want to come up with an idea and license it out and make a little bit off that product and then go license another product out and then another product out and just make a little bit from a lot of different products?
So it sounds like, perhaps if somebody doesn't have as much experience in this world, that licensing a product to a Bed Bath & Beyond, to a Home Depot, Toys R Us, whatever it is, might be an easier way to kind of get to learn the business a little bit.
Yeah, it is. And the person you're actually licensing it to, you're licensing it to another manufacturer who would sell in those stores. So you would license it to a Procter & Gamble or to a Stanley Tools or to a Black & Decker, who would then manufacture it and sell it to Home Depot or Walmart or Bed Bath & Beyond. You're not licensing it directly to the retailer, but to the manufacturer who will turn around and sell it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the way that I got into the business, was through licensing. That's the way that I learned, like I said, from my mistakes and from hearing other people's stories and going to trade shows. I learned the business through licensing and then moved over to the manufacturing side and built a few companies manufacturing products and selling them.
If you decide to take the manufacturing route, do you still have the opportunity to get distribution through mainstream retailers, or is it all direct sales?
Absolutely. No, it's direct to retailers. So times have changed over the last 10 or 15 years. There used to be a mindset within the major retailers that they wanted everything invented in-house. And some of these companies, 3M, Procter & Gamble, some of the big manufacturers out there, they have, hundreds of people and spend millions and millions of dollars every year on in-house research and development teams. And over the last couple of years, that's changed. They don't have the not invented here syndrome anymore, and they've realized that there's a lot of independent people out there who have great ideas. So they're much more open to looking at ideas, manufacturers are, and looking at ideas from independent inventors. And then the retailers have also followed on. So they realize that there's a lot of smaller companies out there who have great products and great ideas that they could bring in and do a small store test, 100 stores, 200 stores, and give the smaller company a shot. And they're much more willing to do that now than they used to be.
Makes total sense. So let's go ahead and say that somebody decides that they want to go through the licensing process. They've filed the provisional patent. What is the next step?
So the next thing you want to do is have a photo rendering created or a SolidWorks design, 3D design created. So you would find a design engineer, depending on what type of product it was. Specifically, there's engineers all over the country who work with 3D modeling. It's similar to AutoCAD, but AutoCAD was kind of for architecture and residential properties, commercial properties, and then they also have what's called 3D modeling, and it's a 3D design programs. SolidWorks is very well known, one that I use most of the time. There's another one called Rhino. Google even came out with a free version several years ago that you can use. But what you want to do is have someone create your idea in a 3D model. So it's done on the computer. They can actually take that 3D model and turn that into what we call a sell sheet. It's a flyer or a brochure, and put the product on there. And the software is so advanced now that that 3D model can look like an actual product, even though the product doesn't exist. So they create it from your idea, from your hand sketches, from your explanations back and forth, create the product, and then they can take the design in SolidWorks or in Rhino, and they can put it on a flyer and put some taglines on it, put the title of the product on it, any other features and benefits, and then you can take that sell sheet, which is a one-page flyer, one-page catalog. You can take that sell sheet and you can present that sell sheet to companies that you want to license to, so that they get an idea of what the product will look like.
Makes sense. One quick question before we dive into that. Where do you find these people to do the renderings, and how much does it cost?
Well, again, that's kind of changing. And as all this stuff is evolving and changing, it's making it much more cost effective for inventors and product developers to get their products to market. So in the past, it was finding large companies who had engineering teams on staff. You could search by SolidWorks designer, industrial engineer. You could go on Google and search for these people. And then, at one time it was trying to find the college juniors and seniors who are getting ready to graduate in that field of study, so that they could do it more cost effective than hiring a big company to do it. Now with, the online services like Fiverr and like Elant, there's much more cost-effective ways to get this stuff done. So if you go on Fiverr, for example, there are people on there who are SolidWorks experts located throughout the world, and you can hire them for, as little as $5, $10, $15 to have them create a simple, basic product.
That's a game changer.
It is a game changer. In years past, I've paid, anywhere from $750 up to several $1,000s for the same thing that I now get on Fiverr for literally $5.
Wow. Amazing.
The people on Elant are also doing that, same thing that they do on Fiverr, and there's several other websites out there, but you can have that sell sheet created on there as well. So you could have your design, your SolidWorks design done for $5, and then you can turn around and have a sell sheet created for $5. So if you filed a provisional patent, had the product designed, and created a sell sheet, so you're ready to go license something, you could be all in it for under $500.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you make the sell sheet, you have a couple fancy taglines and benefits that are related to your product. What's next?
So the next step would be to find on the licensing side of it, if you were interested in licensing the product to a manufacturer, you would find other companies who already manufacture a similar product or a product in a similar field. So if it was a power tool, for example, you might list Stanley, Black & Decker, some of the companies. You go to Home Depot and you walk around and see who are the companies who make this type of product. Make a list of those companies, and then come back and get online and look up those companies. Most of the major companies, the big companies, the Fortune 500 companies, have processes that you have to go through and documents you have to fill out in order to submit a product to them. But the medium-sized companies, I think those are the better targets, because they move a little quicker, and they're not as structured as the Fortune 500 companies. So there's not as much paperwork required, and you don't have to sign your life away to show them an idea. So you make a list of those potential partners, and then you get their contact information, call the front desk and ask who it is that handles their new product development. A lot of times that's in the marketing department. Sometimes it's in the sales department, depending on the size of the company. But your goal is to find the person who you need to talk to. Ideally, if you can get to the CEO, obviously that's the best place to start. But majority of the time, there's people that work in the product development department who you'll have to talk to before you get to the CEO. And then you talk to them, schedule a meeting with them. If you can meet them in person, that's ideal. You go sit down with them. Certainly, if they're in your state, you can drive. That's better than having to fly all over the country. But having an in-person meeting is much better than talking on the phone or via email, because it's harder for them to look at the product and tell you no if you're sitting right in front of them. But oftentimes it's not financially, it doesn't make sense to fly all over the place and meet these people. So you would then send them your sell sheet and schedule a meeting to talk to them about the product. So they're looking at the sell sheet you had created, they're looking at the product, and then you're talking to them either in person or on the phone, explaining what the product is, what the benefits are. They're going to ask, how much does it cost to manufacture? What do you think you should sell it for? So getting the meeting with the right person at the company would be the next step.
Makes a lot of sense. And how do you think that these people make decisions? How do the winners get separated from the people that they say no to?
Well, success breeds success. And once you've done it one time successfully, you suddenly get an ear from many other people. So as an example, when we first did our product, my brother and I first did our product that sold $8 million at retail. Because we had that first success, it was very easy to get the second call and the third call and the fourth call. And so it made it easier and easier to be successful. I tell people oftentimes don't consider yourself an inventor, consider yourself a product developer. And it's kind of a little bit like you're wordsmithing or just changing the word around, but there's a vision that companies have of an inventor. And that's a person who's in their basement or in their garage, hair going everywhere, eyes going everywhere. And they're just, coming up with any kind of crazy idea they can come up with. And all those people may come up with a good idea. Getting them to go from, hey, I have this crazy idea, to being a business person is considered to be a huge stretch. So I always tell people, when you call that product development person or that marketing person in the company, tell them that you're a product developer, that you develop products, you develop consumer products. Don't mention the word inventor, because it's just a stigma in the industry.
Is there things that you can do? I mean, I come from the software world, from the pre-selling world, where we're constantly trying to basically understand the demand for our product by selling it before we've created it, or at least getting commitments from people to buy it before we've created it. Is that something that you can do to kind of come into one of these meetings with more firepower?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always encourage that. There's different stages of startup in the consumer product world as in any other business. But, when somebody has just an idea or a napkin sketch or a hand drawing, it needs to be a little bit further developed before, you can take that next step. But certainly, and I've done this with all of the products that I've brought to market, either once I have the sell sheet or once I actually make a prototype of the product. After I have the sell sheet, I would then go make a rough prototype, and I would take that product to the retailers and say, this is a concept design, or this is the sell sheet of what the product may look like. Would you be interested in carrying it? If so, how much would you be willing to pay for it? What do you think it would sell for? Some of the companies who are a little further along, or the entrepreneurs who are a little further along and may have made some samples, or had a small batch run of the product made, so you actually have the physical product, taking that to retailers and showing it to them and getting their feedback on it, not only in case you need to change the product, but also trying to sell it. And I've told two companies that I'm working with now as an advisor and an equity partner, who have some interest from retailers to buy the product. They're concerned with getting money to finance the inventory. And what I've instructed them is, go sell it, and then we'll build it. If you bring me a PO, a purchase order, a PO from Home Depot or from Bed Bath & Beyond or from Walmart or from any other retailer, if you can bring me a purchase order showing me that there is someone who wants to buy it, we have no problem financing the purchase order, so borrowing money from a bank or another lender to finance that PO at a very low interest rate. Or we can go to investors who will put up the money to fund that order. But absolutely sell it before you build it. If you can sell it before you build it, it makes the next steps very, very much easier than the other route of stocking up inventory and going out and trying to sell it.
So sometimes it makes sense to go straight from sell sheet and one of these three-dimensional renderings to actually creating a prototype.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes it does. And that's usually more when you're going down the manufacturing side. As I was saying, where, depending on what you choose you want to do, it kind of, the steps change slightly. I would say in either case, you would want to have the cell sheet and the 3D rendering. But if you decided that you're going to go down the licensing route, you probably, most of the times, will not need a prototype. The company that you're going to license it to will make the prototype. However, if you're going to manufacture it yourself, then you do need to go through the prototyping stage. And there's usually 2, 3, or 4 stages of prototyping. So you'll initially do a rough prototype, which is kind of the first pass. And then you take that prototype and you see how it works, how it functions, how is it manufactured, what is the cost to manufacture it, how are you going to package it. Taking into consideration the retailer that you're going to sell it, how big are their shelves, or is it going to be hung on a peg, or can you put it on a clip strip, or is it, you really want to think about the retailer that you have in mind to sell it to and knowing kind of what their specifications are. Because if you develop a product that's too big to fit on their shelves, it's not likely that they're going to buy it and put it in. So that rough prototype stage allows you to kind of test your idea. And then there's usually another step or 2 or 3 of refining that prototype where you get to a final working prototype. And once you have the final working prototype, then what I encourage people to do is go ahead and take that and develop the packaging around the prototype. So the first piece that you would have is your working prototype and working packaging, just like it would look like on a store shelf. It's not in full production yet, but it looks and operates the same way that it will once full production is going.
And where do platforms like Kickstarter fall into the mix in this process?
There's many ways now, and again, this is another way that that I think this product development process is just getting better and better. Crowdfunding is huge, and certain states, Georgia, where I live, being one of them, that kind of led the charge with their own interstate crowdfunding campaigns. Kickstarter is huge. Indiegogo is another one, but you basically create that prototype or the sell sheet. I've seen some products who've raised crowdfunding investment dollars without having an actual prototype made, depending on which website you're going with. But you can create the prototype or the sell sheet, and you can put it on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or one of these other crowdfunding sites, and people can go on there. You write up a description if you have a video of the prototype being used or how it would be used. And individuals can go to those websites and invest anywhere from $5 up to thousands of dollars, and then you take that money and use it to further develop the product and to start the business and build the business.
Are most of the people on those sites going through the licensing route or the direct manufacturing route?
I think most of them are going through the direct manufacturing route, especially Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I'm sure there's crowdfunding out there for the licensing route, but most of them that are raising capital on Kickstarter are taking that money and then developing the product, manufacturing it themselves, and taking it to market themselves.
Got it. And what are we looking at in terms of, obviously this varies depending upon the product, but what are we looking at in terms of getting a prototype made? How much is that going to cost?
Depending on what type of product it is, it can be, your rough prototype. Now we have 3D printing, which is, it's SolidWorks and Rhino and these other software programs that I spoke about earlier. They have a connection to a printer, basically, that will print the product that they drew in the 3D software. So instead of plugging in your laser printer that's printing ink on the paper, these printers are printing heated plastic, liquid plastic, into a form. And so it goes back and forth similar to a regular printer, but it builds it up and out in a block format. So it's laying liquid plastic down, and then when it's done, you take the product, which is similar to a cube at that point, but you put it into a solution in a shaker, and it shakes the excess off, and what you're left with is exactly what was drawn on the computer. And that costs anywhere from $300 to, I would say, $1,500 to have a prototype made. And that can be, the first stage, rough prototype. So it's basically direct from your computer to this printer, and you have a prototype.
That's really cool. I mean, I'm just running numbers right now through my head, and from end to end, from potentially filing a provisional patent, doing the research, and then getting a rendering, and ultimately a prototype. You're going to be able to do that in under less than $5,000 in some cases.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And then, depending on how many more versions of the prototype you need to do or the packaging that you need to do, there's additional costs that come. But absolutely, for under $5,000, you'd be able to determine if your product is viable enough to make it in the market. Because once you have that rough prototype and the sell sheet, and you filed a provisional patent, so you have some patent protection, you can tell people that it's patent pending. You can take that information and go to a retailer like a Walmart or a Bed Bath & Beyond and present the product to them and tell them, it'll be 6 months before it's ready or 90 days before it's ready to hit the store shelves. But you get feedback from them that says, yes, I want to buy it, or no, we don't think it's worthwhile. So you haven't spent $100,000 to develop the product. You've spent less than $5,000.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have a quick question. So let's kind of circle back here to the retailers and the manufacturers that kind of sit in the middle if you decide to do licensing. Is it the manufacturers who, if you do a licensing deal with, then take that product to these retail distribution centers and try to pitch it and get it on their shelves? Or is that something that you would do as the inventor?
If you license the product, that's something they would do. So, take Procter & Gamble, for example. They have in Walmart, I don't know how many products, they have 1,000 products already in Walmart or more. So they have relationships with all the buyers at Walmart. So when they license your patent and they go develop that product, they're taking it to their buyers who they already have relationships with. And then between them and the buyer, they're determining what the cost is going to be for Procter & Gamble to sell it to Walmart, and then what Walmart is going to sell it to the consumer for on their shelves. And you're, as the inventor, you're left out of those meetings. You have no control over the pricing structure, but you will get, if they're able to work out, the details and the product starts selling, you do get the 5 to 7% royalty on as many as they sell forever.
And, what's what's an expectation of that people can expect to potentially make if it actually does end up working out per year or per month? Obviously, it varies.
Yeah,
what's like an average? What's like an average? What's an average like small success?
I try to coach people, and I said you get royalties on it forever. It depends on what you negotiate. The average patent, if you get a patent issued, it lasts 20 years, and most of the manufacturers will only want to pay you for the time the patent is in force, because after that, anybody can make the product. So you get paid forever. You really get, you can negotiate for a 30-year payment or, for less than the 20-year. But, I tell people when negotiating on a licensing agreement, try to negotiate in an upfront payment, which very rarely happens because the manufacturer who's licensing your patent is about to spend $100,000 to $1 million to take your product to market. So they're less likely to hand you a check for $10,000 or $50,000 up front. Some of them do, but it's very rare. But then I tell them, people, the next step in that is to try to get a minimum yearly guarantee. So several of the products that I've licensed in the past, I've gotten minimum yearly guarantees, which stated if the manufacturer, I would give them an exclusive, meaning I'm not going to allow any other company to manufacture it. I'm not going to license it to any other manufacturer. But in order for them to keep that exclusivity, they have to pay me a minimum of $50,000 a year. If they don't meet that $50,000 minimum, then I have the right to go license it to another manufacturer. So building those things in, I've had some set with no minimum, and, I might make $4,000, $5,000, $8,000 a year. Other products I've had minimums where, have made upwards of tens of thousands, and more.
No.
So it really depends more on the negotiations of the licensing agreement. But again, when I'm trying to teach people to learn the process and love the process, not the product, for me, success is getting a product to the market and makes money. So if I make $1,000 a year off of one product, that's okay. If I make $10,000, that's pretty good, because I'm trying to do another product, and so a little bit off a lot of different products is my goal, rather than trying to, hit a grand slam on one product. And that's very rare that happens. It does happen, but it's very rare.
And it sounds like, I mean, if you do decide to do the licensing route, it is very passive because the fulfillment and actual distribution part of the process is completely taken care of.
Absolutely. And, the first product that we did, the DIY product, we would be receiving checks once a month and, with a report of what the sales were for that month. And we did nothing more after we paid for it and filed the patent and got all that approved and then signed the licensing agreement, from late 2003 or early 2004 until 2012, we never did anything except for receive checks every month. And then in 2012, we ended up selling the patent outright to one of the companies that we had licensed it to, because they had got it into Home Depot and they felt like, it was going to go gangbusters. And so they agreed to buy our patent from us. So we received monthly checks for however many, 7, 8 years, and then sold the patent outright in 2012.
That's my kind of business, man.
Yeah, I like those passive ones. After doing both, after doing the passive incomes from licensing products out and then building companies around manufacturing products, the passive route is much easier, much more cost effective. And, I like sitting on the beach with the umbrella in my drink and receiving checks in my bank account. That's a good thing.
I hear you, man. So you said something interesting earlier, and that was that 95% of patents do not make a dime. Where do I guess I'm curious about the percentage of provisional patents that these licensors see and decide to spring for versus, you know what, this isn't going to be a good fit. We don't want to do this. Is that where these patents go to die?
I don't think so, no. I would say that's not the majority. The majority of things of these patents that don't ever make any money are people who, you've probably seen these on TV or, an automatic, toilet flusher, for example. It's a foot pedal that you step on that'll flush the toilet so you don't have to do it with your hands. And, somebody has the idea and they rush out and file a patent on it. And, they mortgage their house or levy up their credit cards and build a prototype. And then nobody's interested in buying the product. So they've got a patent on it, but it never makes any money because although there is a feature to it, I guess, there is a benefit that you don't actually have to touch the toilet with your hands. The practicality of it, the cost of it, where is it going to sell? Walmart's not going to sell something like that. Bed Bath & Beyond likely is not going to sell something like that. So they were so focused, the entrepreneur, the inventor was so focused on the product that they didn't look at the retail perspective of it. They didn't go talk to retail buyers before they spent all the time and money on the patent. So if they would have, the retail buyer and, consumers may have said, yeah, it's kind of a cool product, but I would never buy that.